Hey, Jeff here again. So I wanted to do a quick entry for Dylan over at the Record Spinner. I was doing a nostalgia contest of sorts. You get a Ramones album if you win. So I wanted to submit this because I got to thinking, watching some of the other videos, and just thinking about the whole nostalgia thing. I mean, obviously, music gets to you. It forms pictures and places in your mind. It builds memories, and a song will come on and you'll be like, ooh, flashback to where you were when you first heard it, flashback to some significant situation. And so it's a cool contest idea because music does that. We hear music and it reminds us a lot of times of things that we did. I think more so, I don't know, this is just me, but in the past, I mentioned this in my last video, back in the day we had less albums. We bought albums less frequently and we spent more time listening to them. And so we they became more a part of us. And I'm going to talk me. I have more memories, that are based on things like that. You're like, wow, I remember when I bought that album, or I remember this significant situation. And so there is a lot of that. And so when I got to thinking, I wonder if I could do this. I mean, I know I could do this, but let's think about for this contest. So I started flashing back. And what I did is I flashed back to, there are certain memories. I mean, when you get older like me, and some things, disappear, but there are certain memories that stick with you. And when I think back to some of those memories, a lot of them are related to music. And I'm like, so when I started thinking about music and the past, a lot of things come up, but there are a lot of situations back in the teen years when I was really getting into music and stuff that come to the forefront. So I thought I'd stick with that. Now I did have to I tried to stick with just vinyl, but my vinyl collection is only a few hundred versus the amount of music I need to fly back to all my memories would be a lot more. So I had to go with a couple CDs. First up is the first, and I've told this story before, I'm pretty sure, I know. Growing up as a teen, 12, preteen, 11, 12, 13-ish, I mainly, and this would have been in the mid-70s, a lot of the music I listened to were, I would say, more on the disco side. Grease, the movie, Saturday Night Fever, which I saw Grease. I don't think I ever saw Saturday Night Fever, but there's the Bee Gees, the Gibbs, Andy Gibb, and I've told some of this before, but that was what I mainly listened to. I had one of those little portable record players that had a top on it, and it had a handle. And you just go and you pop the handle, and then you plug it in. It had a speaker built in, you put it on there. I used to carry a stack of 45s. I didn't really have albums. I had 45s. Carry them around, and I would take it to all my friends' house, and we would sit down and play these, and and it was the Bee Gees and stuff like that. Knock on Wood, and one of my favorite songs back in the day was Pop Music. I don't even remember the band name. Pop Music, Radio, Video. Anyway, really weird. I pulled it up the other day and showed it to a coworker, and the video was just like embarrassing. But so that was the stuff I was listening to. Then I remember going to a friend's house, and again, I know I've told this story before, but her sister had Kiss Alive 2, and we pulled it out and listened to Shock Me and said, listen to this guy, he sounds like he's drunk. I mean, she didn't say sound like he's drunk, he sounds weird when he sings. And we put on Shock Me and made fun of this guy. Well, I don't know, for some reason that, and my older brother's friend had Kiss Alive, and I'd heard them playing that before. I don't know, at some point I thought I'd interested in Kiss. So my older brother, 5 years older than me, when I was probably 12, we went out and he helped me buy a Kiss album. And the first Kiss album I ever bought was Love Gun. Now, we brought it home, and I remember he sat down and helped me to memorize who the four names of the four guys were. So I have this memory still burned in my mind of me coming home. My parents had my dad had one of those big things that people had, the big, long thing, had the TV in the middle, and then over here you lift this thing up, and it had the record player down there, and over on the other far side you lift that up, and it had a place for all your albums. So it was one of those big units that sits in the middle of the house, black and white TV, and so that was a record player. And I remember having the record there, having the lid flipped up, putting the record on, playing the record. My brother took the cover at one point, and then I remember pulling out the gun and popping the gun that was in there. My brother took the cover, and he went in the dining room, in the next room, and started drawing the cover. He was a really good artist. And so he's drawing the cover. I'm listening to the record, and I remember listening to this over and over and over and over, and memorizing the words. And it has shocked me on it, but I remember Christine 16, and you don't always pick up on all the innuendos and stuff that are in here as a teenager, like I did, like I was. So to me it was just weird songs, and I remember listening to it. And probably not too long after that went out and got Live 2, because I remember this. I have memories of listening to that on that record player too. Not a whole lot of memories on that record player. I do remember opening the other side and seeing my brother had a Steely Dan album. That's about all I remember. Oh, and Queen. He had a Steely Dan and a Queen album over there. I had Kiss. So that's one of my first memories of music, aside from the little 45s. My first rock and roll / metal, metal releases was Love Gun. Now, I'm keeping these in order. Van Halen, Diver Down. I do want this on vinyl. Still one of my favorite Van Halen albums that most people don't like. But, okay, a couple reasons. And I think mainly, even before the album, they released a single for Pretty Woman backed with Happy Trails. And I have a lot of memories of going to my grandmother's house up in the hills of West Virginia and spending a lot of time up there. I used to stay up there for a couple months during the summer, and my cousins would come, and my cousins were there, and we would just all have fun. Lots and lots of memories at Grandma's house. But one of the key ones was me and my cousin listening over and over and over and over to Happy Trails, and singing along and laughing along and joking along, Happy Trails to you, over and over. And so that really stands out. The other thing that stands out about this is Big Bad Bill Sweet William now. Clarinet playing by the Van Halen's father on here. So again, clarinet, Benny Goodwin. I played clarinet. I remember letting my parents hear this. Check out this hard rock band and this clarinet. So that's another memory that I had with this album too, was trying to impress my parents by letting them hear this hard rock band that has a clarinet on it. All right, now the next memory is going to have a threefold application to it. Also, back in the days of the early 80s, I had one of the first jobs I had was a paper route. I think everybody had paper routes back then. Mine was an easier one, though, because it was an apartment complex for the most part. So it was mainly, I would park my bike and then hold the bundle of papers under my arm and walk around and put them in front of the doors, go up and down the stairs and put them in front of the doors. So it was all walking around this big apartment complex. So it wasn't like I had to go from house to house. Well, I always had my Walkman on with the, whatever the best cassette of the day was. The memories I have from that paper route, when I think back to those days, there's 3 albums that come to mind that I remember listening to constantly while I was walking around the paper route. So all that time, the only 3 albums that I could think of that are still in my memory include the very first Rad EP, and that is a lot of glare that I need to turn that off. The very first Rad EP, this blew me away. I loved it. This is actually a copy of the original. It is still sealed, and I have a video that I'm planning on doing maybe tonight, I don't know, where we're going to crack into some of these that I've got. I bought this probably more than 20 years ago, and I didn't have a record player or anything. I bought it because I saw it in a record store. It was still sealed. They wanted like $10 for it back in the day, 20 or so years ago. And I just thought, not only is this one of my favorite albums because of the nostalgia, and it reminded me of that, but this is the original release before they got signed with the color picture. I just thought this would be great to have, and I've held on to this even through the years of having no record player. Held on to this for decades. I'm hoping it's not warped. I'm gonna open this. We'll do that video later. The other one that really sticks out in my mind, walking around listening to this all the time, still probably my favorite Twisted Sister album is You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Under the Blade is real close. Under the Blade and You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Yeah, Stay Hungry's great, but these two have a bite to them, and this one particularly was just one at that time of my life that I just played constantly. So this is always in my mind when I think of those days walking around doing the paper. And Motley Crue's Too Fast for Love. This album, when I don't know what the deal was, I was one of those guys that anytime I got my paychecks, I would go to the record store whenever I could, and I would buy things in the independent releases. So when this came out, it wasn't necessarily an independent release, but it was one of those bands that had that look. In the independent releases, I'd go through and look for bands, and that's where I found the Rat. Anybody that looked like that looked like they were from California. This was the 80s. It wasn't like we had the internet or whatever. You just either stumble across these things or you mail order them. And so they had this in the record store. It looked cool. I bought it. The Rat was in the independent section, and I bought that. This album, I don't think I could get enough of this. And forget about it. When Shot the Devil came out, it was like on steroids. It just went over the top. And that just brings up another memory I have, which I should have brought up into this, but I'm not going to because I've already got 5. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. All right, another memory is, again, same time frame. Me and my best friend at the time, we bought records. We had his father would take us there. We bought all these records. We bought magazines. We cut up pictures. We decorated our room with posters. We watched MTV. We did everything music together. And then we used to go out in the road between our houses and play Frisbee. We'd get out in the middle of the road, no cars are coming, we'd play Frisbee. Play Frisbee with the box radio going, cranking music full blast for all the neighbors to hear, and we would just play Frisbee. Hey, this record's over, the cassette's over, let's play another one. Well, there was a cassette that I had burned from a record, of course, that nobody had really heard of at the time, not in Virginia, and he had never heard of, and I remember him making faces at me thinking, what is this stuff? This is really weird. And I'm out there, because I had listened to this thing to death, and I'm out there air guitar and all the leads, and he's just shaking his head like, I don't get it, what is this stuff? Well, what it was Metallica's Kill 'Em All. This was in the independent release because it was a non-major label, and I picked it up, and I knew nothing about it, knew nothing about thrash or speed metal or any of that. It just looked like one of the, I didn't know what I was getting. I looked at the back, it looked good. I had no clue who they were. I don't think I'd even... Yeah, Metal Massacre, those series were not things that were readily available, so I think I eventually got it. But anyway, I bought this, and nobody ever really heard this band in our area, and I wore it out. And then it became pretty popular, I think. So that memory of him just shaking his head and kind of making fun of me as we're out in the street playing, and I'm just going to guitars, solo hero, air guitar in it. That really sticks out. Now this next one is a jump forward a few years. This would have been in that time frame when I was only listening to Christian music. And this is really a story not so much related to me, but it is a memory. So our church at the time, me and the pastor were both musicians, and we had played some together, but he'd been in a band, and so we were really close. And one day he was over, him and his wife were over, and I guess he knew it was a kidney stone or whatever. He was just in so much pain and sweating, and he was rolling around we lived in an apartment. He was rolling around on our floor in the apartment, just trying to find comfort, laying and just in so much pain. And he's really anti-doctor. He's not really fond of all that, but ultimately he just couldn't handle it, so he went to the hospital. And he was in the hospital waiting for this thing to pass. They determined it was a kidney stone or whatever. And just, anybody who's had one of those knows the pain. I've had one of those, and fortunately it only lasts a few hours and it passed. But he was in pain. I forget how long he was in the hospital. But he had this on cassette and listened to it. This is Bloodgood's first album. Bloodgood is one of the early Christian metal bands, alongside of Barren Cross, Striper, Saint. This was one of the early ones. This is early 1986 is their first album. They had a cassette prior to this. So this was the early one, and this is the one that when we got this, it just blew us away. Because if you listen just to Christian metal, you're just focused on that. This was like really very, very, very cool in the day. And they went on to put out a lot of great albums. And they actually put out an album a couple years ago. They got back together. Oz Fox from Striper joined them for guitar, and they put out a really good album. And right now they're, they play here and there. But this album, so I remember he told the story. He's laying in the hospital bed. He's in so much pain, and he was just praying, God, please relieve this pain. He was just in tears because of this pain. He said he was listening to this, trying to focus his mind, just to calm his mind down, and praying and stuff. And he got to the song Black Snake, which is it is the last song. Very fast, one of the most thrashy sounding songs. I mean, this is traditional metal, but that song is really fast. And he said, and he just got the adrenaline in him, just got that song. He just loved that song, and he was listening to this song, and he says, as he's listening to this song and he's praying, he's in pain, he said he just felt this flush of peace come over him, and the pain went away. And he passed a stone. You might say it's a coincidence. I would say it's an answer of prayer. I would say blood good answers prayer. Anyway, so that stands out because I remember the ordeal with him laying on the bed on the floor in so much pain, and then him telling me later of the hospital. And we went to him in the hospital after the fact, and he told us the story. He had his Walkman on with the cassette in there, and he said, "I'm listening, and I'm just trying to focus my mind on something other than the pain, and I'm praying the pain's going to go away." And he said, it was just like that song came on, and it just took it right away. And so that song is more nostalgic to him, I'm sure at this point. But that story was very, very memorable to me. I'm gonna throw in a bonus track. I didn't pull the music. But I don't have to because you're gonna know the music. And it's what I thought of a minute ago when I mentioned Shout the Devil, and I am talking about Shout the Devil. Another thing that me and my friend did. Was it the last video or video before last? I showed pictures of this air band that me and my best friend had, and his father built this makeshift stage. It was really nice. Drum riser. We made fake instruments, and we used to get out there and just put the box radio on and just play it really loud, and then we would just whole concerts. We would tape these concerts off of Rockline and whatever was on the radio, and it'd be like Ozzy concerts and Sammy Hagar concerts and Def Leppard concerts, or we would just take the album and put it on and play to the whole album, lip sync the whole album. That was our afternoon. Let's go do a concert. We would go in the house. We put on all these weird clothes, that whatever we could find, wristbands and bandanas, and we would dress apart. And then we'd walk from the kitchen through the house and through the back door, thinking we're entering the stage. It was corny but fun. We had a blast, and we had lights on the stage, all kinds of lights, and we would just work up a sweat, running around, putting on the best show we could. Sometimes we had people watching us. Who cares? Sometimes we didn't. Before we had the stage and before we were doing all that, we would sit on my friend's front steps because he had steps that were pretty wide and we could both sit on them. I would sit behind him. I'm on drums. I'm sitting down. He's standing in front of me, and we would play 2 albums on the box radio. Shout at the Devil was constantly played, and Walking the Razor's Edge was by Helix. Are 2 that I totally remember doing back then. Those 2 albums. I'm sure we did a lot more, but those 2 albums I remember us playing on his front porch. No lights, just in the dark, because we didn't want all the neighbors thinking we were corny. In the backyard was where the stage was. Not that people could see us. So that is a bonus memory of music that I totally is still ingrained in my head. Very nostalgic thoughts and memories of that. I'm hoping this friend of mine that I'm talking about, this best friend of mine from back in the day, I joined the military after high school. He was 2 years behind me. He was a little younger, so he had more years. He was still in school. I went in the military and left home, and I was gone for about 20 years before I came back. I moved back here like 17 years ago or so, and so I lost touch with him. He went on. We all had our lives and stuff like that. I come back here. Occasionally would see him. Facebook, of course, brings people together, so we've been Facebook friends. Last year we went to a concert together. That was like the first time I think we'd ever gotten together. I said, "Hey man, I got a ticket for Judas Priest. You want to go?" He's like, "Sure." We went to Judas Priest together. Did a little talking in the very beginning, and then the concert started. So we chit chat here and there. But I told him cause I noticed the other day he started posting pictures of vinyl records he was getting, and he contacted me and said, hey, I got these albums, you want them, because I'm gonna sell them if you don't want them. And I'm like, so you're back in the records, I guess. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, you need to come over to my house. We need to get back together, and we need to do videos. You need to come over here and guest in my videos occasionally. So I don't know if he's interested. I just said, look, do it. Go watch my videos, and let's get involved, and let's have fun. Because then I have somebody to bounce stuff off of, and we'll have a lot of these kind of memories to go back on. And we have a lot of the same musical tastes, and I think it would be great to have a partner, even at least a couple times, and just to have to get back together with this friend of mine that I have not really had much interaction with for the past 35 years. So anyway, I'm hoping that might happen. I approached him about that like 3 weeks ago. We were talking about the Kiss concert, but anyway, that's all for now. That's enough. We're going long here. Thanks for watching. I hope this entry is successful in being accepted as an entry, and of course, good luck to the winners, whoever that may be. If it's me, fine. If it's not somebody else, fine. It's great. This was a great thought. It was nice to go back and think of these things and go down memory lane and just bring back the memories of what music has done in my life. And there's so many, but these stood out as things. I started thinking of what records I had that I could do, and then I realized I had a couple short I had to do CDs, but there's memories galore. I could go back and do more. But thanks a lot for watching, and have a great night.